The Minnesota Wild unfortunately come up short 4-3 to the Edmonton Oilers, and now it's 2 straight losses in the John Hynes era after 4 straight wins to start it. Let's break down all of the action in tonight's Locked On Wild postcast.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 4-3 to the Edmonton Oilers here tonight. Now 2 straight losses after the first 4 games of the John Hynes era, all wins. We're breaking down all the action on tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. How we doing, everybody, on a late Friday night? Just one more game on this West Coast trip coming on Sunday night, and then we're back to normal start times, at least for a little bit. And there's a lot to get to here in this one. And honestly, with the exception of the first period, I don't have a ton of issue with what we saw here in this one tonight, because let's look at some of the factors that were weighing in this. The Wild playing on the second night of a back-to-back, playing an Oilers team that is playing their best hockey of the season, 5 games in a row that they had won. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl absolutely on just torrid stretches. And so you get out of that first period. You get out of that first period down 1-0. Yes, the shots were 18-4 in favor of the Oilers, but I didn't expect anything honestly really different, because again, you're playing the Oilers in Edmonton. You're going to get the best that they have. You're going to get a shot right out of the gate, just like the Wild did to Vancouver last night. And the fact that Marc-Andre Fleury was able to keep that at 1-0, I think was a huge win. And I think we saw the team react in that fashion to the fact that they were down just 1-0. They come out swinging in the second period. They get goals from Matt Boldy and Joel Eriksson to take the 2-1 lead. Connor McDavid, I mean, what do you say on that goal? He got Fleury out of the crease, and he somehow was able to kind of reach back and tap the puck in, despite being basically behind the net, to make it 2-2. Then you get the Connor Dewar goal to make it 3-2. Leon Draisaitl on the power play is as automatic as it gets to make it 3-3. And then you get the other power play goal to make it 4-3 at the end. So you can boil it down to the Wild had 2 penalties that ended up deciding the outcome in this game. And the Matt Zuccarello holding on to the stick penalty, that's one you just can't have. And I know the penalty kill has played better since John Hynes took over, but you're talking about, just like we saw with Vancouver last night, it's a power play that doesn't mess around. The Oilers do not mess around on the power play, and they took those 2 chances. They capitalized on both. We're going to talk about what happened with Ryan Hartman and with Evander Kane here in a second, but it came down to those 2 penalties, and the Wild had chances down the stretch. They had chances in the final couple of minutes, and they just weren't able to get that tying goal past Stuart Skinner. We saw John Hynes deploy some tactical things throughout the course of this game. And so all in all, honestly, I have fewer issues with this game than I do with what happened against Vancouver, because the Wild were in it up until the end. And I just don't, I'm not going to get as riled up as I did in today's episode, just absolutely ethering John Merrill, who had 2 hits tonight. So he clearly listened, because that was the most production he's had in a game in a long time. Now, obviously, there are some concerns with this game, because there's no update on what happened to Jonas Brodin. Hynes did not have an update after the game. We all saw what happened. Evander Kane face plants him into the boards. No call. And I think it's pretty telling that the Department of Player Safety is already looking at that play for potential discipline. And so you can look at that and say, yeah, Should have been a penalty. And let's talk about Hartman here too, because look, Evander Kane, that's just how he makes his money, is being a guy that agitates the opposing team. He knew that Jonas Brodin was back there, and he knew that he had an opportunity to try to do something that was going to impact the game down the stretch, and he did. Ryan Hartman's sticking up for Jonas Brodin, and so he goes after him. And so the thought process in that situation needs to be that the officials are looking for that. It's like in baseball. It's like when you get hit by a pitch, the umpires are watching the other team, watching your team to see if you retaliate. The referees were keeping an eye to see if there was any sort of retaliation attempted at Kane. Hartman did. And you get a penalty, and Edmonton ends up scoring. So Brodin is the biggest takeaway from this game, because if he is hurt, that means Merrill and Goligoski are both in the lineup, and you got to call somebody else up, probably Damon Hunt, to fill that spot, which is just wonderful. But we're not going to get ahead of ourselves here. At the end of the day, let's talk about some of the positives. It's very clear that Matt Boldy and Joel Eriksson are really starting to build some solid momentum. And Matt Boldy especially scored again, couple of points. He has 6 points in 4 games over the last 4 games. So he's clearly starting to pick up his play. And I like how they pointed out in the broadcast that the Boldy goals are coming from right in front of the net, just like with Marco Rossi, is that he's getting to the front of the net and is creating opportunities right in front, which means that that's not something that is likely to slump. If you're not hitting from outside, if you go to the net and you just continue to put the work in those dirty areas, that's where the goals come from. So Boldy and Eriksson, huge parts of this game. Tip of the cap to Marc-Andre Fleury, as we talked about, keeping the Wild in this one. You just give Edmonton too many opportunities on the power play, and you're playing with fire. So that ends up being what determined the outcome here tonight. And I thought it was interesting. You see Connor Dewar pick up the goal, and then you see John Hynes down the stretch double shift Kaprizov with Dewar and Hartman to try to get Kirill opportunities in which he's not matched up with the top defensive pairing for the Edmonton Oilers. So that was kind of the tactical approach that Hynes took to try to get Kaprizov more ice time. And I see in the comments already, and we'll talk about it when we move to the comments portion, is you continue to see Kaprizov trending in the right direction. But, something that I think is problematic for this team still is guys just being hesitant to shoot. And Freddie Gaudreau had one instance in which he was driving to the net, and instead of trying to get a shot on net, ends up trying to ends up looking for somebody else to be able to try to get the shot on net. And it ended up that they didn't even get a shot on net. And I don't think this team can afford right now to be selective. If you have an opportunity to shoot the puck, let it rip. Marcus Johansson had an instance like that a few games ago, in which he had the space in front of the net, and instead of trying the shot, he forces a pass to the other side of the crease, ends up being a turnover, and the Wilds come away with nothing. We just have to get guys in the mindset of, when they have the opportunity to shoot, just ripping that thing and trying to come away with some goals. Wilds had shots down the stretch. Hartman hit the post. He had a real good opportunity late, but just ended up hitting the post. And, we talked about it in the pregame today. We wanted to see how this team handled adversity. You couldn't have had more adversity in the first period of that game. Edmonton just had whatever they wanted. It was like a bunch of hyenas circling a wounded gazelle. But then in the second period, when the hyenas go up to try to get a little bit of a taste of the gazelle, they end up getting kicked in the face. 2 goals. And so you see this team respond to the adversity and come away being able to shake off that type of a period and to take a 2-1 lead. And, Edmonton tied it. Wild response. Edmonton tied it again and then took the lead. And so the battle level was there. Hynes talked about it after the game. He said he liked the battle level, the compete level for the team. Just came down to a couple of things that did not go the way of the Wild here tonight. And so I'm gonna just take the high road approach to this game. It's an Edmonton team that they're playing their best hockey of the season, and so the fact that they won is just how it ended up playing out here in this one tonight. So those are kind of my takeaways from this game. No update on Jonas Brodin. Doesn't look great. But then again, neither did Jared Spurgeon's injury against Chicago, and he came back in later in that game. So we'll see if we get an update. That'd be a huge loss for this team and would just continue kind of how this season has played out so far. So that's my take from this game. I want to hear what you all have to say because we have a large audience in the show already hanging out on a late Friday night. And so we will continue to take your comments as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home the win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is also brought to you by Jase Medical. I know we come to the sports department to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we just talk a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. That is a scary thought. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if a friend, a spouse, a relative, or some kids that have family members get sick while a supply chain issue keeps them from the life-saving medication they need. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jase Medical. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics that treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, and others. This stuff can happen to any of us. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It'll be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Again, go to jasemedical.com, use the offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's jasemedical.com, offer code LOCKEDON for $20 off your order. Welcome back to tonight's Locked on Wild postcast. The Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 4-3 to the Edmonton Oilers. And it is time to get to your comments here on what we saw in tonight's game. We have a lot of people in here, so we'll get through the comments that we have, and we'll just hang out until we give everybody a chance to get their voices heard. Looks like a newer face to our Locked on Wild postcast, Goss Bexel. Yikes, that board by Kane. Played bad nonetheless. Don't understand why we can't shoot the puck. This is, I think, a product of being gassed from the game last night and going up against a fast team in the Edmonton Oilers that made things look as lopsided as they were early on. But I will credit the team for responding, for being able to keep it at 1-0 despite the 18-4 edge in shots for Edmonton in that first period. Because they responded. The shots were relatively even the rest of the way. And just it comes down to a shot here or a shot there. And Stuart Skinner wasn't great. So there were certainly opportunities to try to get more goals on him. The Wild just were not able to capitalize down the stretch. And that's just how she goes sometimes throughout the NHL. But yeah, as I said, this sort of opponent on the second night of a back-to-back, that's I have fewer issues with how things played out, because you can kind of pinpoint the spots where things happened. Quadrum is here. I'll say, despite the 2 losses, I do like how we're still playing aggressive and fast. Tired legs and penalties cost us the game. Yeah, that was it. It was those 2 penalties at the end. And again, there probably shouldn't have been one on Hartman, because Kane should have been called for a penalty to begin with. Now, maybe you do get some sort of retaliation against Kane, but a kind of a rat move. I see people already making that comparison, and yeah, it was kind of a rat move by Evander Kane on that play. And of course, Edmonton ends up being able to capitalize on it. But yeah, that and the Zuccarello penalty, it's really what this game boils down to. If you can get a stop on one of those on the penalty kill, you probably are either in overtime, or you maybe find a way to keep momentum and to get a win in this game. So you boil it down to those 2, and that's why the Oilers got the win. Mojo needs to figure it out, and I know he had an assist tonight. And what I'm being told is that he actually had 2 assists. I'm being told that he has been playing better. I guess I'll believe. There have been moments, but I feel like the overall product is still just not where it needs to be with Marcus Johansson. And for a guy who is stuck on a single goal this season, it's the getting top 6 minutes still that is kind of the spot of contention. It would be one thing if you had bumped him down in the lineup a little bit and you're maybe starting to see some signs of coming out of it. But, if you're going to be a guy on that second line in that top 6, you're one of the guys that's being looked at to be a scorer for this team. And so until Johansson starts to find the back of the net regularly, it's going to make the other things that are being done. And there have been times where he's been able to hold the zone to allow more opportunities for Boldy and Eriksson. So there is stuff going on. It's just the point production has not been where it needs to be. And so until that does, it's going to look like kind of a half product. And so if he's able to pick up a goal against, say, Seattle or somebody next week, that's going to help ease some of the pressure that's being put on Boldy and Eriksson to do the heavy lifting for that group. But yeah, it would be nice to see a goal or 10 or 20 or 30 to get him back at where we had hoped that he would be so far this season. Let's go to GA 007. Our power play needs Faber because he can take a one-timer like Bouchard. I agree. I think the hope is that Brock Faber, before too long, will be able to be the one quarterbacking that top power play unit. Because yes, Faber does have the shots. He also has the instincts to be able to run it. And he also is not afraid to step up on his own. If there's really no outlet pass opportunity to him for him on either side of the net, then he can step up and take the shot himself. And you don't see the same type of element with Jared Spurgeon running that top unit. Spurgeon is he's an offensive defenseman that is also elite defensively. He's got offensive capabilities is probably a better way to word that. But there's just something different about being a guy who can help you out in 5-on-5 and being somebody who can run a power play competently. And Faber is going to give this team the best chance to have a good one. The worry is that you just don't want to overload him with too much too early, but he hasn't shied away from any of the other opportunities that have been given to him so far this season. And so I think at some point you just got to rip the Band-Aid off and just give him that chance and just live with the results. You know, there are going to be growing pains for young players in spots like that, but you don't know until you try, and you don't give them the opportunity to see what it's like and make adjustments themselves, like having a kid ride a bike. You assume that they're going to crash because they don't have a ton of experience riding the bike, in this case, quarterbacking a top power play unit. You assume they're going to crash, but they may not. They may crash. They'll probably get back up and they'll continue to try to ride the bike. But if you just prevent them the opportunity from actually trying, then you're not going to be able to see them succeed. That's part of the human condition, is learning through failure, learning from mistakes, and continuing to improve, continuing to build, and continuing to get put in positions to succeed. And so let's make the case for Brock Faber to get the top power play spot, to just try to get that unit to not so much high, super low, like just consistent production. It's where you can count on a power play here or there to get you back into a game. I want to get to a comment that Dustin had. Flower played great. Edmonton is healthy. Bingo. That is a huge part of the equation for how the Oilers have gotten back to playing like they have now, winning 6 in a row. Getting some key players back to help be part of the equation has been a huge thing for them to climb out of the hole that they put themselves in early on. Jason joining us. We just couldn't get the puck out of the defensive zone and it bit us in the rear. This is also accurate. And this is, I think, part of what John Hynes is preaching offensively for this Minnesota Wild team, is that if you move quickly out of the defensive zone, through the neutral zone, into the offensive zone, you have an opportunity to get into the zone before the opposing skaters have an opportunity to turn and intercept in the neutral zone. And so if you just continue to push that pace and push the issue from the neutral zone to the offensive zone, you have way more opportunities to attack and to put pressure on your opponents. The Wilds at points in this game got stuck on their own ends because they just weren't able to quickly move up the ice. And so Edmonton was able to intercept in the neutral zone and to just turn the attack and push it directly back into the Wild side of the ice. And so that's going to be the key for this team to play the John Hynes school of offense, is to quickly move from defensive zone to neutral zone and offensive zone, so that you don't end up, having to have those instances where the team intercepts and just is able to quickly push you back in to your offensive zone. Mike is trolling me here. I know it, because he says it's probably time to move Merrill up to the top D pair. And like I said, credit where credit's due. Merrill had 2 hits tonight, and I don't know. I was in the car listening to most of the game, so I didn't have a chance to see a ton of it. But I'm just going to assume that there were some things that that didn't go according to plan, because it's John Merrill. That's always how it happens. So it's just about limiting those opportunities to be able to not have him. Like I said in the pregame, it's like he's holding a hand grenade and has pulled the pin, and you're just hoping that his thumb doesn't slip off, and then the grenade detonates and you don't have a fun time. Tonight didn't seem like it did, but there have been plenty of opportunities so far this year in which the grenade has detonated, and it's not fun. Yes, we were all rooting for Hartman on that post hit. And I think I found it interesting today. Michael Russo was on with Dan Barrero on KFan, and he pointed out that on 3 different instances, Ryan Hartman was trying to extend his shifts to get more ice time with Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. He just kind of doesn't feel like he fits on a particular line at this point. But now tonight, he did play better. And so maybe he just, I don't know if there was a sit down with John Hynes. There was a piece in The Athletic that I believe Joe Smith authored that talked about John Hynes wanting to sit down and talk with guys about some of the changes that we've seen since he took over, with minutes, with different responsibilities, just to make sure that everybody was on the same page. And so maybe there was a conversation between Hynes and Hartman to just kind of explain where he's at. And it seemed like a little bit of a different Hartman that we've seen since Hynes took over. Would have been nice to get the goal, but ultimately that just wasn't how it was meant to be. Cave Wanderer, Waiver Rider. I can't read, evidently, at 11:36 at night. I don't think Rossi will play much under Hynes going forward, especially when it comes to tight games. See, I'm going to disagree here, because I think with Rossi, we've seen enough over the course of the season to have seen that built up equity to know that he is certainly capable of playing well when things are going right. A lot of comments here in the chat that he just looked off tonight, and so off games happen here or there, and I don't think we need to read more into it other than the fact that Rossi just didn't have his best, and it could be the fact that he's going up against 2 of the best centers in the NHL. I know they oftentimes play on the same line, but McDavid and Draisaitl are pretty good at what they do. And so I'm going to give Rossi the benefit of the doubt that it just wasn't the best night for him, but he has played well enough so far this season to where I think we just need to look for him to bounce back against Seattle. If he does, okay, yeah, just an off game, but I'm not going to lead into like a slump or anything until we actually see one. I mean, he's second in the NHL amongst rookies in goals with 8. He is up near the top of the list in terms of points. He's had a good season. It just is something where it just didn't work out tonight. And so that's as far as I'm going to go with that. Whole team looks tired. Denny's right. This travel schedule sucks. Like, I don't understand why the NHL has just insisted on having these stretches of games against the same opponents, like the 10-game stretch against the Rangers, the Islanders, the Sabres, and the Devils. And now you have one against Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Seattle. And then you come home and you play Vancouver and you play Calgary again. Like, can we spread some of this out? I don't get it. But it's just something that's annoying for me because I hate these slower starts. Let's get to Quadrum because he brings up a great point about Connor Dewar, who now has 6 goals on the season. Dewar is playing good enough to deserve higher line minutes. I'd love to see him with Boldy and Eck. And actually, I was thinking about this on the drive home for me tonight, dealing with day job stuff while this game was going on. And I was trying to come up with who makes the most sense to pop up onto that second line. And honestly, I think it is time to ride the hot hand. And one of the hottest hands since John Hynes took over has been Connor Dewar. And so why don't you just see what you got? Marcus Johansson, I will acknowledge people have said he's played better. I kind of want to see a little more, but you can drop him in the lineup. Just see what Dewar can do. He's on a heater right now. And worst case scenario is it ends up working. I mean, you were confident enough to double shift Kaprizov with Dewar and Hartman late in the game to try to get some opportunities to tie the score. And so it's clear that they have felt that that Dewar's been playing well recently. Let's just give it a shot and see what happens. You know, this is, I think, an opportunity too where we can fall back on the John Hynes school of opportunities are given, opportunities are earned, not given. Reward Dewar with an opportunity to hop a little higher in the lineup. I mean, you can have Ryan Hartman center that fourth line if he's still going to play there. He still gives you enough versatility as a center to be able to do that. And then you can have Dewar play wing on that second line. Let's just see how it goes. Give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? You don't like it, and you go back to what you were doing. Yeah, so be it. Give it a shot. Give it a shot against the Kraken. What's the worst that can happen? But we'll see. Dewar has been playing very good, very well over the last few games. And so let's just see what we can do with somebody else in that Johansson spot. See if that can further spark, because Boldy and Eriksson Ek are playing well enough on their own. If you throw somebody in on that wing spot who can give you a little something more, like I said, could be worse. You could find a combination that works, and then you ride with it to find something. And, you know, to further the point on Rossi too, I think it's been something, it has been interesting to see how John Hynes just continues to give him that top center spot, which I think leads you to believe that John Hynes also believes that Rossi continues to deserve it. And so even if he had an off night tonight, I'm going to be shocked if he's not on that top center spot against the Kraken on Sunday, because he's a young player. He's in a new position, and you're going to take the highs and the lows to just further the development of Rossi as this season goes along. Looks like we got a new sub in, Rick. Thank you for joining us here for tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. Thank you for subscribing to Locked On Wild, and hope you're having fun in the postcast here this evening. Even though the Wild ended up coming up short, we always try to make them fun, even when the results are not great. I got to move on though to some John Merrill chatter. Merrill on the breakout is awful. His fluidity through the neutral zone is insufferable. You could not be more right. I don't get it. I said it in the episode today. I don't understand. I don't. And I tweeted this out too, and somebody on Twitter said that there are underlying analytics for John Merrill that are the reason that he was signed to that 3-year extension. And I'm like, please show them to me, because I haven't found him anywhere. His numbers have gone down every single season since he signed it. And so I don't get it. What do you see? What is the appeal? Like, help me understand this, because it just continues to drive me crazy. There's really nothing left under this beanie in terms of top of head hair, because I've pulled it all out trying to figure out why we continue to roll through the John Merrill experience. It's like riding a broken roller coaster. You know it's broken. You try to convince yourself that it's not, and you get what you pay for. Just not fun. So the Wild lose 4-3 to Edmonton, but again, it's an Oilers team that has now won 6 in a row, and the fact that the Wild were in it up until the end is encouraging. They handled the adversity. They were able to take the lead. It was tied 3-3 heading into the fourth period. Then Evander Kane does his thing, and the game kind of spirals out of control after that. So really don't have a ton of issue with what we saw. And so I'm going to take the rest of the evening to just try to further digest. We're going to have a pregame preview for you coming up on Sunday ahead of the Wild Kraken game. We'll have another postcast for you. We'll have Alex Micheletti joining us on Monday. And I will probably have another episode for you tomorrow too, because I don't really have a ton going on. And so we might as well take the opportunity to break something else down for this team to wait for Sunday. But that is going to do it for tonight's Locked on Wild postcast. So thank you to everybody for joining here tonight. Denny, as always, for leading the charge. We had Mike in here, Rick joining us. Thank you, Rick, for becoming one of the regulars for Locked on Wild. GA007, Dustin, Joseph in here, Goss Bexel. Again, the regular crowd always turns out, even after these stupid late games. Freddie in here too. Everybody turns out after these stupid late games, and we just continue to have a great time with these Locked on Wild postcasts. So we'll continue to keep them going here for you. Again, we're bringing the content for the listeners. And so win or lose, we're here. No days off. We continue to just churn things out and just continue to cover this season as much as we can, win or lose. So let's get some sleep. We'll be back with you again for an episode tomorrow, and then of course Sunday's festivities as well. So make sure to hit the like button if you have not already. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already, although if you're here, I have a feeling you have. So make sure to subscribe and to join us for further episodes and postcasts as we move through the rest of the season. You can find new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.